In the frozen heart of Russia's Ural Mountains lies a wind-blasted slope known to the native Mansi people as Kholat Syakhl, the Mountain of the Dead. For generations the name was dismissed as a myth, a warning born from ancient fear. But in the winter of 1959, that name proved itself more accurate than anyone could have imagined. It began with 10 young hikers, brilliant, athletic university students, setting out on a long-distance expedition they had trained months for. They were seasoned, disciplined, and determined to conquer one of the harshest wilderness regions in the world. Leading them was Igor Dyatlov, a perfectionist with a mind for engineering and an unshakable will. Together they laughed their way into the icy woods, unaware that only 9 of them would ever be seen again, and none alive. A few days into the journey, one member of the group fell ill and turned back, unknowingly becoming the only one who would survive by pure accident. He later described the team as optimistic, united, and more prepared than ever. To him there was no sign, none at all, that something dark was waiting ahead. Yet by February 2nd the group had made a strange decision. They pitched their tent high on the exposed slope of Dead Mountain, instead of the sheltered forest below. No one knows why. Maybe they were caught by a sudden storm. Maybe they were off course. Or maybe they were avoiding something lurking in the woods. Their final campsite remains one of the story's most unsettling riddles. Sometime in the black stillness of night, terror struck the tent so abruptly, so violently, that the hikers slashed it open from the inside to escape. They fled barefoot, half-dressed, some wearing only socks and thin shirts, into temperatures cold enough to stop a heartbeat in minutes. The snow showed no signs of an attacker. There were no other footprints except their own, staggering away from their only shelter as if fleeing a nightmare that had crept silently into their tent. Search teams later found the first bodies beneath a large cedar tree nearly a mile downslope. Their hands were shredded and bloody. The bark above them was torn off. It looked as if they had tried to climb it in a panic, desperately, either to hide or to get a better view of something approaching from the dark. A small fire had been attempted, but the wood was barely burnt. Whatever they were trying to do, it wasn't enough to save them. 3 more were found scattered between the tree and the tent, frozen in positions that told a story of confusion and fear. One appeared to have been crawling uphill through the snow, as though trying to return to the shelter despite the cold draining the life from his body. Their faces were twisted not in pain but in horror, raw, absolute horror. The last 4 were not found until the spring thaw, buried in a ravine deeper in the woods. The moment rescuers uncovered them, the story shifted from tragic to terrifying. One of the hikers had a crushed chest, massive internal injuries but no external marks, as if she'd been struck by an invisible force. Another had a fractured skull, yet no bruising, no sign of impact. One girl was missing her tongue and eyes. The body showed no signs of animal feeding. The wounds looked almost surgical, deliberate, and impossible. Even stranger, radiation was detected on some of their clothing, at levels far higher than background exposure. No one could explain why university students on a hiking trip in the wilderness were carrying contaminated clothing. The more investigators uncovered, the more impossible the story became. For decades, theories multiplied like shadows shifting in the wind. An avalanche was the first explanation offered, but the slope was too shallow, the injuries too severe, and the tent inexplicably undisturbed. A military weapons test was another theory, supported by evidence of classified Soviet activity in the region, but that didn't explain the missing body parts, the ripped tent, or the hikers leaving without clothes. Some theorized insanity caused by infrasound, low-frequency vibrations known to trigger panic, but that didn't explain the radiation or the crushed bones or the silence of the night. Others pointed to local accounts of glowing orbs floating above the mountains that night, silent, hovering lights witnessed by hikers miles away. Some rescuers insisted the snow around the campsite showed strange depressions, almost like footprints, but not human. These claims vanished mysteriously from official reports, removed before the documents were archived. The Soviet government quickly sealed the case. Files were classified. Pages disappeared. Witness statements were locked away. Families were told nothing except that their children had died from a compelling unknown force, a phrase that appears in no other Russian forensic report before or since. Even the hiker's final journal entry added a strange twist. It contained a single hurried line: "We now know that the snowmen exist." Some believe it was a joke. Others think it was a warning. Whatever it meant, it was the last written trace of 9 brilliant young lives. Today, Dyatlov Pass remains one of the most feared places in the Russian wilderness. Some who visit report their compasses spinning wildly. Others claim to hear faint human screams carried across the wind. There are stories, too many to ignore, of shadows moving behind the fog, appearing just long enough to be seen, then gone. Local guides refused to camp on the exact site of the 1959 tragedy. The Mansi people still warn travelers not to go there after dark. More than 60 years later, the world still struggles to understand what the hikers truly faced. What could force 9 experienced mountaineers to flee barefoot into a sub-zero night? What crushed their bodies without leaving a mark on the skin? What left radiation behind on their clothing? And why did the government hide so much? Whatever happened on Dead Mountain that night remains locked behind ice, secrecy, and fear. It is a story the world continues to revisit, and a mystery that refuses to die. Perhaps the truth is buried beneath decades of cover-ups. Perhaps it lies somewhere out there on the mountain, waiting for a traveler bold or foolish enough to uncover it. In the end, one fact remains: 9 hikers ran into the darkness as if something unimaginable was behind them, and they never returned. The mountain kept its secrets. If you have your own theory about what happened on Dead Mountain, share it in the comments. And if you want more real-life horror stories, paranormal encounters, and unsolved mysteries that still send chills around the world, make sure you subscribe for more. Because somewhere out there, another mystery is waiting, and next time it might be closer than you think.